If you're getting gaslit by your conventional doctor and they're telling you everything's fine and your blood work's normal and there's nothing wrong with you, but you have symptoms and you know your body, you need to dig further. You need to find somebody who will listen to you and find a functional doctor that can help.
Hey there, sisters. Welcome back to the Period Whisperer podcast. As you know, Thursdays are our expert interview days, and I have a very wonderful, amazing expert for you today. Dr. Kela Smith is here and joining us. She's a PhD, a holistic doctor, researcher, and educator, and the founder of the Hormone Puzzle Society. She is so knowledgeable, and I think all things hormones for women, infertility. She's made such a big impact in the lives of the women and the couples that she works with. And we're going to dig into, I think, an important topic about understanding functional labs versus conventional labs. And just in general, you're going to love her energy. So welcome to the show, Dr. Kela.
Thanks, Bria. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited too. We were just laughing beforehand about, I think, wherever you live in the world, this is such an important conversation for women, no matter what part of your journey you're on.
For sure.
So let's start. I always like to start with you. Start with your story. Like, what first pulled you into women's hormone and fertility health? And, how did your journey bring you here?
Yeah, so it started out of my own personal struggle with infertility and being very frustrated with conventional medicine and being told at 36 that I had unexplained infertility, but IVF was my only option to get pregnant. And I left that office thinking, I'm 36, I'm not 56. Like, this can't be the only way. And so that led me down this road of research, trying to figure out what I could do to optimize my body for fertility and overall health. And so that's what I did. I ended up I healed my body. I had undiagnosed hypothalamic amenorrhea, which my conventional doctor never talked to me about. And I ended up healing that. I got pregnant not once, but twice and had my two children who are now almost 13 and 10. And with a 2-year-old and a newborn, I said, I have to teach this. And so I went back to school and pursued a bunch of different certifications and ended up with a PhD in medicine. And then I started my practice. And as they say, the rest is history.
I love that. I love that. Now, a long time ago, I did a podcast on hypothalamic amenorrhea, but can you tell everyone what that is? Because I think it needs more noise.
Yeah, so it's when the body is in a stressed state and the hypothalamus is almost like it's under attack and it stops sending the signals to the body and to the ovaries to ovulate. And so you lose your cycle, you're no longer ovulating, it impacts your fertility and your overall health. And it really is an untalked about diagnosis. They never asked me about this. They just assumed that I was cycling, that I was ovulating, and threw Clomid at me and letrozole, and really I had that condition. And so mine was caused, I know now, from I was a personal trainer. So I thought eating really low calorie and being super skinny was healthy, and that wasn't healthy. And then I was like, I don't have a cycle. Great. I don't care. I don't want my period. That's no fun. Not knowing what a big impact that would make on my ability to get pregnant, my overall health as I aged. And so, yeah, that's if you don't have a cycle, that is not normal. We need to figure out why. Yes.
Love that you said, like, yeah, I think it's so helpful to be very clear about what is normal and what is not normal when we can. I mean, it's not always that easy, but I love that you just laid that out there for us.
Yeah.
I think I want to get right into it because I know that many women listening right now have been told their labs are normal, but they don't feel normal. I think this was certainly my story and what spun me into this, journey of digging more deeply and better understanding my body when the answers I was getting didn't make sense to me. But from your perspective, what's the biggest limitation of conventional lab work for women in perimenopause or even for their hormones?
Yeah, sure. So conventional labs look at a very small window and they're looking for normal. And normal in conventional medicine means you don't have a disease or you're not like pre-disease state. It doesn't mean optimal. And so if you have symptoms, even if your blood work says normal, that means that there's something that's your body's way of saying there's something wrong. You need to listen to me. And so any symptoms I say that are more than mild, that means there's something wrong and we need to dig further. And so that's the first piece. Conventional labs, they're really just looking at, are you in a disease state or not? They're not looking at optimal. And then the reference ranges that they look at in conventional labs is really small, and it's looking at the general population, which honestly, most of the general population is not super healthy. And so we're looking at people that are maybe, mid range, not optimal. So again, we really want to look a little deeper and look at functional labs.
Yeah, so listen to your body. Listen to what she's
Exactly.
saying to you. I love it.
Exactly.
If you're not diseased or almost diseased doesn't mean you're optimal, and I think that's a really great explanation. Is that what you when you went through, when you were going through fertility testing, and is that what happened for you, where it was like, "Oh, this is," they just lumped you into a category and you're like, "This doesn't feel right?"
Well, they just did conventional blood work and said, everything looks normal. You must have unexplained infertility. But they never said, are you ovulating? What is your cycle like? What are your symptoms like? Like, I was never asked any of those questions. I was just lumped into unexplained infertility and said, let's try Clomid. We did 3 rounds of Clomid, didn't work. Let's try letrozole, didn't work. I think you need to go to a fertility clinic because you're 36 and you're advanced maternal age. And I'm just like, oh, wait a minute. No.
I love that you use the term puzzle, you use it in your book, but let's talk a bit about this, terminology, you use the hormone puzzle. What does that actually mean?
Yeah, so a couple different things. So hormones are a puzzle and not one hormone acts in isolation. And so it all works together with every system in the body. And so I think about it as if one piece is out of alignment, then you're going to have an unhealthy picture of health. Whereas if we can get all of the pieces to be in alignment, then that creates the beautiful picture of health where everything's working the way that it should and everything is optimal, and you're doing the things that you want, whether that's avoiding symptoms as you transition from perimenopause to menopause, whether that's if you're working on fertility, getting pregnant, losing weight if you're trying to lose weight, whatever your goal, everything is working the way that it should. So that's the first piece. And then Hormone Puzzle is actually an acronym of all the pieces that I did in my own fertility journey and what I use with my patients, so that it's made it really easy for you to understand the foundational pieces of health. And I can go through what that stands for if you would like. I love an acronym, so I had to make an acronym out of it. So
Please do. I'm making notes. If for any, this is the time to make notes, pause it, put it in your phone, whatever. But yes, I'm totally making notes.
yeah, so the reason I created this was because I felt very out of control when I was having, going through my fertility struggles. A lot of stuff was happening to me, and I wanted to take back some of that control as a type A personality. So I thought, what can I control? Well, I can control my nutrition, I can control my lifestyle pieces. And so this is how the hormone puzzle was born. So puzzle stands for P, proper whole food nutrition.
Mhm.
U, understanding supplements. Z, zapping stress. Z or Z's, sleep. L, love and encouragement for yourself and within your partner and your community. E is exercise and environment. So all of those pieces are things that you should focus on daily to just optimize your hormones, balance everything, and live in optimal health.
Can you tell me the Z's again, or Z's for
Yeah. Yeah. So Z is zapping stress, and then Z, second one, Z's sleep.
Oh, I love that. Z's.
I know. You should have seen me trying to think of how to make this acronym. I'm like, okay, I know I want these pieces, but these letters don't really spell anything. So let's get creative.
Really does kind of cover the whole holistic foundation of what we want to be looking for. Because you work with women in hormones, maybe we can center in around the women who are listening who are in their 40s, likely in their 50s. What pieces of this puzzle do you find are the most commonly missing pieces?
Well, the first one is nutrition. I find so many people think, well, two things. They think they're eating healthy when they're not, or they're under eating. So many women are under eating because that's what we've been taught. Eat less if you want to lose weight. Work out more, work harder, eat less. That is not what we want for any stage of life, but definitely not in perimenopause and menopause.
Yeah.
We have to eat to fuel our body and to fuel our hormones. So that's the first piece is nutrition.
I love that for sure.
Yeah.
Are there any others that you find so common that are throwing people off?
Yes. The second is sleep. We undervalue sleep. So sleep is just as important as what you eat. They go together. They're so important. because when we're sleeping, we're detoxing, our cells are turning over, we're renewing, our brain is healing, our gut is healing. All of these things can't happen if we don't get enough sleep. And I find so many women are just burning the night, burning the candle at both ends. They're not sleeping enough or they can't sleep. And I always tell my patients, if you can't sleep, deep sleep for at least 7 hours a night, I like to see 9 hours, but 7 hours is minimum. If you can't do that, we need to look and figure out why. And that's where, and we'll get into this in a minute, where we look deeper with functional labs. But we need to find that root cause of you not being able to sleep, because there is one, and we can fix that, heal, and get you sleeping.
I have to ask you, what is your sleep habit? Like, what are your do you have a bedtime routine, a wake up routine? I always like to hear from people what.
Yes. So I go to bed very early. I put my kids in bed around 7:30. I'm in the bed no later than 8. And I have about an hour routine where I call it a power down hour, where I'm showing my body and my brain and my nervous system I want to go from wake mode, work mode to sleep mode. And so, I'll go in my room, I'll put on my cozy pajamas and slippers, I'll wash my face, I'll do one of my biohacks, whether that's my red light therapy or my infrared sauna or my new thing now is the castor oil on the belly button with the little stick of gas there. Yes. So I'll do some of those things, maybe read, maybe take a shower if I need one that day, and just kind of get my brain ready and my body ready. I'll turn on my red light on my salt lamps, and so it's like red light in my room. And then, yeah, I'll just relax and get ready to sleep. And then I actually get up very early. I'm up at like 3:34. I'm at the gym by 4:30. I like to get in and work out before my kids get up, because if I don't do it then, it doesn't happen. And so I'm at the gym for about an hour and a half, and then I'm home getting, the morning routine with the kids and the breakfast and all the things. And so that's my routine. And I am very type A. I don't deviate from that routine very often. And so I'm just like boom, boom, boom.
I find the routine for us, it's so helpful and grounding. You're like, teach your body what comes next. What comes next falls into that rhythm. But do you ever find like every now and then you just need to bust the routine, like just for a weekend? Maybe that's what vacation is or something. Do you ever get that?
I do. And sometimes I'll actually take like a week off. Like last week it snowed here in Nashville. And I'm like, this is a perfect opportunity to not go to the gym, to sleep in a little bit and just have a quieter morning. And your body needs that break from exercise to just reboot and rewire your nervous system and relax. So yeah, I do. And then on vacation, I try not to push the routine too hard. I try. It's hard for me, but it's one thing that I do try to work on.
I agree. Just bust it a little bit. It reminds me of like, as a trainer, they always talk about like, you can't do the same thing. You got to muscle confuse. You have to shake things up. And I think your body occasionally, it needs to be rooted in routine, and then like needs to swap it up sometimes.
And I will say too that if somebody struggles with routine, prepping ahead is such a game changer. Like I have my gym bag is packed, it's by the door. My night routine stuff is in my bathroom where it's easy to find. Like all my stuff is there. My shoes are where I can find them. My keys are in a certain spot. Like I don't want any, confusion or like, anything to help to cause me to deviate from that. I want to be prepared. And so that helps with stress. For 3, you have to poop every single day. At least, I would say multiple times a day, but at least once. And if you're not, then we need to look at your gut health. And that's another place where we're going to dig into that root cause. You should be pooping every single day. And I find this happens a lot in perimenopause and menopause, where our digestion is slowing down and, our hormones are changing. And so it causes some constipation. So that's definitely something we need to look into and get that gut working the way that it needs to and the way that it should, so that we can poop every day.
Plus, we all know you don't feel well if you don't poop. Wake up early and travel and your system gets a little bunk for a day. It's just not the best feeling, is it?
I will say the castor oil packs over the belly button really help stimulate that, the bile and the digestion and help with the pooping. So that's one of my tricks. Yeah.
And how often would you do a castor oil pack?
I do it a couple times a week, 2 to 3 times a week. I'll just stick it in my belly button. I know some people will do it every day, but I don't think you need to do it every day. I think that's too much. Yeah.
A couple times a week, stick it in the belly button. You do it at night, you said.
Put a little sticker there, and then you can sleep in it if you can do that. Or you can just leave it on for, 45 minutes to an hour and then remove it.
And I love that you ask these questions, obviously, of your clients. That's why you're so successful and it helps so many women. But what would you say are some examples of functional labs that you use, and what do they show versus conventional labs that like those might miss?
First one, as since we're talking about hormones, is a dried urine hormone test. Some people call it a Dutch test or a dried urine hormone test. But what this looks at, not just what your levels are, but how your body is methylating and detoxing. It also shows your stress pattern and what that 24-hour cortisol pattern looks like, looking at your adrenals, looking at all of those things. And so this is different than blood work because blood work is just a snapshot in time. This is showing us all of those markers that I just mentioned, and it's showing it over a 24-hour period versus just that one blood draw. And especially in perimenopause and menopause, our hormones are changing so rapidly that it's hard to catch things on blood. We really have to look deeper and look at that 24-hour pattern. So that's probably the first one I use to look at hormones. Um, the second, we were just talking about the gut. So I love to do a full microbiome analysis, not just looking at things like what a gastro doctor would do in conventional medicine, because again, that person is looking for disease or illness. It's not really looking at how the gut is functioning, what the inflammatory story looks like. Do you have a leaky gut, meaning is your tight junctions, they've been stretched and allowing food and things to go into your bloodstream, causing inflammation. It's not looking at things like opportunistic bacteria or parasites or even how you're making short chain fatty acids or how your vitamins are being synthesized. So, microbiome analysis is really helpful. That's probably Dutch test and microbiome. Those are my two. I'm like, they go hand in hand. If you can afford to do both, do both. But it's hard to pick just one because they're looking at different systems.
Will you use those for a woman of any age, like whether she's coming to you with challenges or whether it is her fertility goal, like she's wanting to, to actually have children still?
Yeah, I like to use that on all phases of hormones throughout a woman's cycle. Now, I will say in menopause, when they're no longer cycling, it's been a year since your last menstrual cycle, then you're in menopause. And a lot of people don't realize this, but menopause is just a singular day. It's that 1 year anniversary. And then you're in postmenopause after that. And so that means you're no longer cycling. And so with that population, I will still do a Dutch test. I'll read it a little differently because we're not looking for fertility markers, but I think it's still helpful because it still shows how you're detoxing. And even though your ovaries no longer making estrogen, you still have estrogen coming from your adrenal glands and your fat cells. And so we want to look at that and how you're detoxing that, because if you're not detoxing, then that can cause a whole host of issues in menopause. So yeah, I think it's beneficial for every stage of life.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm just curious because I know this is your expertise and I know there's a lot of women listening, maybe not a lot of women who are wanting to have babies, but plenty who have daughters that are coming into that and want to be able to share education. When you're looking at the Dutch for a woman who is in those fertile years wanting to maximize fertility, what are the key green flags you're looking for or red flags?
Yeah, so I'm looking at how she's metabolizing her estrogen. What pathway is it being metabolized down? Is the levels high enough and optimal? And then how it's being detoxed. We want it detoxing down the 2OH pathway. That's your anti-cancer pathway. I'm also looking at her phase 2 detox to see, does she have a methylation issue? Could she be a candidate for an MTHFR gene mutation? Now, this is not a diagnostic tool, so we can't diagnose that, but we can say this is showing markers that say you probably have this. Now, let's dig a little deeper with a diagnostic tool. So that's the first piece. I'm also looking at progesterone. How's progesterone being detoxed? Again, blood draw is just a snapshot in time. So we want to, and a lot of times too, the blood draw is done on the wrong day. Progesterone should always be taken on day 21 or 5 days post ovulation. And so the Dutch test, we can really look at that and see what the level is and how it's being detoxed. Then I also like to look at the androgens, your DHEA, your male sex hormones, your testosterone, your DHT. I'm looking at those metabolites and what the levels are, how they're being detoxed. Do you have good enough levels to support fertility and overall health? That's another piece I like to look at during perimenopause because our DHEA declines with age, and we can do some really good stuff with some supplementation as we move through that phase.
Yeah.
And then I like to look at the adrenal glands, the stress hormones. That's prevalent for fertility. If you are in fight or flight where you have too high cortisol, or you've been in fight or flight for so long and you have such high cortisol that now it's low and you're almost flatlined, that will put your body into a state of fight or flight, which is not conducive to fertility. And your fertility and your reproductive system will get downregulated usually when that happens. So making it harder for fertility. So I like to look at that too. And then on the Dutch test, not Dutch, but the dried urine test from Meridian Valley Labs, this also has thyroid markers. And so sometimes if I run that test, I'll look at T4 and T3 and see again how the thyroid is being detoxed, because sometimes we can have normal thyroid levels in blood, but when we look at how the body's actually using the thyroid hormones, sometimes it'll show us that there is some thyroid dysfunction, even if blood work says normal. So I like to look at that as well.
I love that. That's fascinating. I didn't realize that because thyroid comes into play so often, I find, for women in perimenopause. And it's their conventional markers that you just can't get for the most part, unless you have a really open-minded doctor, I think.
And then the one thing I will say about thyroid, so thyroid, we can look at that in blood, and I do like to see thyroid levels in blood, but we have to get a full thyroid panel, not just TSH. And so if you have any metabolic issues where inability to lose weight or temperature control or, the night sweats and the hot flashes, anything like that, I would get a full thyroid panel. Also, infertility, you or your daughter, your granddaughter, infertility, we want to look at the full thyroid. So T4, TSH, T4, T3, reverse T4 and T3, free T4 and T3, and even thyroid antibodies, because a lot of times you get normal thyroid numbers, but you have high antibodies showing that you do have an autoimmune condition that's affecting your thyroid. And so we want to check that.
It's so valuable. I think just hearing you talk about all of these things, I feel like you and I can geek out on this. I hope it wasn't overwhelming for the people listening, but I think what this very clearly says to me is like there's not a one size fits all thing. Like we need to really look deeply at your body, and that's the value, I think, of these functional labs.
Exactly. And a little plug to work with a practitioner who knows how to read these labs. If you're getting, I hate to say gaslit, but if you're getting gaslit by your conventional doctor and they're telling you everything's fine and your blood work's normal and there's nothing wrong with you, but you have symptoms and you know your body, you need to dig further. You need to find somebody who will listen to you and find a functional doctor that can help.
And really read through the lab for you too. I find it's hard to see clients. I know clients that come to me that like have their labs, but don't really have much of an explanation of it. I think that's where it really matters who you work with. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I know you touched on this a little bit already, but I think it's so important to dig more deeply into, because I think perimenopause is often treated like an ovarian hormone problem only. But let's talk more about, we talked a bit about the gut, but like how do the liver, metabolic health, and nervous system like continuously and impact the hormone systems and symptoms at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, all the systems in the body work together. Your liver is going to determine how your hormones are being detoxed and recycled. The gut is going to influence things like not just detox, but especially estrogen detox, which is so important during perimenopause and menopause. Your metabolic health influences how sensitive your cells are to your hormones. Then your nervous system really defines how your body feels safe. And so if your nervous system is on high alert, it's going to put you into that sympathetic nervous system state where you're in fight or flight and freeze. And so if you're in that state, that's going to affect all the other systems in the body. And so really everything works together, and it's about doing the foundations that we talked about earlier, but then optimizing where there might be dysfunction, and you can, figure out where you really need to focus first based on doing some functional labs. But I always say start with the foundations. Don't go and spend a bunch of money on lab testing and hire a really expensive practitioner if you're eating McDonald's and you're like sleeping 2 hours a night. We got to start there first. But then after that, yeah, I would say getting some functional labs and then focusing on, all of those systems that I just mentioned is going to just help you thrive in perimenopause and menopause.
Yeah, I love that. So you're saying start with puzzle, like start with that puzzle there. And if you're doing, I think I love that as well. I always like start with the foundations. If you're finding it really hard to be consistent, I think that's a good indicator that it's time for some help. And if you're doing it and nothing's changing, then there you go. There's another indicator.
Yeah.
I know I probably don't want to dig too deeply into it, but we talked a little bit about methylation. And I think this is an area that so few people know, like regularly know anything about, which is understandable. It's quite complex, but it really, like when I'm seeing more and more issues with methylation in my clients, for sure, sometimes rapid, sometimes almost none, and Can you talk at a high level about that for women so that they understand the importance of it? Sorry to throw you on the spot there.
Yeah, no. So methylation just means how your body neutralizes certain things and how they're turned into usable forms.
Mm.
And so a really good example of this is your B vitamins. You have to methylate your B vitamins so that they can be in usable forms. And some people, 60% of the population has a one or both copies of a gene mutation called MTHFR, and that causes you not to be able to methylate. And so in a sense, people that have this gene mutation, one or both copies, if they can't methylate their B vitamins, then they can become B vitamin deficient. And B vitamins do all sorts of things in the body, but one of the main things is energy expenditure. It gives your cells energy. And so if you can't methylate and you can't give your cells energy, then all different processes in the body will be compromised because we need cellular energy to run the show. It's like the car doesn't have any gas to run the motor. It's the same thing. And so that's a very high level explanation of the methylation piece. But I would say get tested, get some DNA testing to see if you have one or both of those mutations, because it's super important. It can affect everything from fertility to, perimenopause to how much energy you have on a daily basis.
Yeah, I didn't realize years ago is that there's so many different forms of B vitamins. And depending on how you methylate, it's almost like depending on what car you drive, you might need diesel or you might need regular gasoline or you might have to. And I think a lot of us don't understand that when we go out and just buy, supplements that we've seen on social or randomly that we hope is going to help. And then for a lot of people, it causes more issues.
Yeah, exactly.
That was great. That was an amazing high level version. If I do want to see more interested more in methylation, we'll probably do a full episode, but I would Google it. Check it out.
Yes.
Kela, for women dealing with weight gain, poor sleep, anxiety, low energy, like this is obviously what we hear a lot of in perimenopause. What are a few patterns you see repeatedly when you're looking at functional labs?
Yeah, so it could be things like hormone signaling. So maybe your levels are normal, but the signal has gotten muted. And so we really need to look at that hormone signaling pattern. Sometimes it's cortisol issues. And so, again, like I said earlier, if you're stuck in fight or flight, then your body's going to show you all of those symptoms. You're going to have issues with weight loss and energy and sleep and all of the things that you just mentioned. Sometimes one thing we haven't touched on is blood sugar instability and insulin resistance. I find sometimes this will pop up and, as we're going through these phases of life. So really looking at what is your blood sugar, getting some, this is one place where we can look at blood work, doing things like looking at your A1C and looking at your blood sugar balance. And those pieces are really important. Low mitochondrial function. So sometimes it's cellular energy, and this has to do with nutrient or mineral deficiencies. And so really, this is a test we didn't talk about, but the HTMA is the one that I really love as well, looking at mineral balance and metal toxicity and seeing, if your cellular energy is being compromised because of these deficiencies. The gut, we talked about the gut. So many things can be rooted in the gut. So if you're having any, and I always say any symptom can link back to the gut. So really looking at the gut if you're having any of these symptoms, but definitely if you're having constipation or diarrhea or bloating or, any of those telltale gut signs, but really any symptom can link back to the gut. So it's always one to rule out. So yeah, and then just inflammation in general, if you just feel like you're inflamed, if you're, kind of bloated and you just don't feel right, that can be whole body inflammation caused by many different things. Again, that can be rooted in the gut because our immune system's in the gut, but it can really be caused by many different things. So looking at inflammation and doing things to lower it are all important to avoid all of the symptoms that you just said. And I want to say something else too, that those symptoms are optional. We don't have to have those symptoms, and we've been told this is normal, this is not normal. You can feel amazing. I don't care how old you are. You can feel amazing at every age and stage as long as you give your body the support that it needs and heal what is it needs to be healed.
I love that. That's like the hope that we all need to hear at this and to keep working towards the health that we deserve, I think, right? So it's so inspiring. If I was to come to you like I just don't feel well, like Kela, like I don't have a budget, I have a full budget, whatever you need, run the labs. Like as a woman in perimenopause, what would you be like, okay, no matter what, I want to run these? And
Yes.
the microbiome, the Dutch, what else would you do?
Yes. So first, I would start with a full health history. This is what I do with all my patients. It's called a deep dive call where we do a 57-page health history for them. We spend an hour together where I look at everything from birth to now and all the symptoms that you're experiencing. And then I recommend testing accordingly. So I don't just blind throw tests. But my favorite tests to run and what I see most people benefit from are the two that we talked about. So the Dutch test, the microbiome analysis, the HTMA, which I mentioned earlier. Sometimes I will do mycotoxin testing if I feel like there's a lot of unexplained symptoms that just don't correlate with anything. And then we're doing foundational healing and then they're just not going away. And I'm like, okay, is this a mold issue? Let's look at mold and mycotoxins. Sometimes I'll run that. Sometimes I'll do a DNA test and I'll look at those methylation pathways. I'll look at what are your genetic SNPs for just overall healing and health. Is there anything in your genetics that we need to adjust, to work towards? How you exactly be aware of? Yes, yes. Sometimes I'll do a vaginal microbiome testing if somebody has, issues with BV or yeast infections or UTIs, or there's something where they're always having issues in the reproductive tract and the vaginal tract and those pieces. Sometimes it's a microbiome issue in the vaginal tract. So I will look at that. That's not a test for everybody. So if you don't have any issues with that, then you probably don't need that test.
Yeah.
And then sometimes food sensitivities. I don't ever run food sensitivities unless I do a gut test first, because you can get a false food sensitivity test when you're not really sensitive. It's just the gut needs to be healed. So sometimes I'll look at that. But again, if we've done the gut test and we've done the gut healing and you're like, every time I eat, strawberries, I get hives or whatever it is, then I'm like, okay, let's see if it's a true food sensitivity and if we need to eliminate that food.
I love that. I think that shows your integrity, that we want to really cater to the individual, because like the protocol needs to be catered, like even just understanding where we need to start digging is individualized, isn't it?
Exactly.
That's amazing. I think that testing can feel overwhelming, for some women, especially when it's like we're not going to do conventional testing where we've laid our trust for so long, but we know maybe something's not working there. We want to dig more deeply. How do you help women use the lab data as empowering rather than a source of stress? Because I think sometimes it can be, especially for these type A'ers that you talk about, it can feel like I failed or there's so many things wrong. How do you explain them or use it to empower them?
Yeah, well, I talk about it as this is just data. This is just information. And so we're trying to figure out the root cause of why your body has these symptoms in the first place. It's not showing you did anything wrong. It's not showing there's anything wrong with you. It's simply showing us where we need to focus our treatment, and it gives us a roadmap instead of just guessing and throwing a bunch of stuff and saying, well, it could be this, it could be that, do this, do that. We know exactly what to do. And so I feel like it's empowering. It really shows us where our treatment needs to go and puts the control back in the patient's hands. So yeah, it's no judgment, just information and data.
Yeah, I absolutely love that, because I think we have long maybe gotten caught up thinking like, oh, someone else has the answers for us, when really we're at least half of that equation. Understanding our own body it's so valuable and empowering to be able to bring to the table your part of the picture and what you get to control. So big or reframe. You have an amazing book. You're an author. Your book is so wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about it and how it can help everyone?
Sure. So this is actually my 6th book.
Oh my gosh, you're 6?
Yeah, my 6th baby, my best book. Yes, this is my best one yet. It's called Solving Your Infertility Puzzle, Your Guide to Optimized Fertility. And it is written for those who are trying to get pregnant. But honestly, we were just talking offline, Brianna and I, that anybody that has a cycle or that is in any phase of women's health can benefit from this book, because I go through in detail the pieces of the hormone puzzle and how to use those foundations just for overall healing and health. Obviously, how to use them if you're trying to get pregnant, but also if you're in any of those phases of life. And then I also go through all the lab testing that we talked about here and more in detail. I go through blood work. I go through what the levels, what you need to look for optimal ranges, what you need to do with that information. I have a whole chapter on cycle health. So this is a really empowering chapter, just teaching you things that I feel like many of us did not learn in elementary health class. And so I talk a lot about that. And then I have case studies where I have patient stories of people who struggle with infertility, struggle with hormone imbalance, and how they healed and now they're living in optimal health. And I have 175 different research studies showing how holistic health is it does what it says and proving everything that I talk about in the book. So it is a great read, and I encourage anybody that has a cycle or is in any of the phases of life from fertility, perimenopause, menopause, you need a copy of this book. So yeah.
Oh, I love it. Now, how do we get it? Because I think I'm already with myself. I love that you break down the lab work. I love that you go through lab work. I think that's can be so helpful for us, to better understand things in examples.
Sure, sure. So I'm not sure when this episode airs, but the book comes out March 11th, and we have pre-sales going on right now, as of February 10th. And so you can go to Amazon to get the book. But then also, I would recommend you go to our website, hormonepuzzlesociety.com/fertility-book, because if you pre-order it, you can get all the bonuses. We have a really cool masterclass and some digital downloads and just a lot of fun free things. And so go to that link and grab your pre-sale copy and get your free bonuses. And then on March 11th, you'll get the book delivered to your doorstep.
Oh my gosh, Kayla, that's so exciting. Well, congratulations. I'm very for the women listening. If we just want to get into your world, if we just want to learn a little bit more from you day to day, where is the best way to do that? Your website as well?
Yes. So you can go to my website, which is hormonepuzzlesociety.com. And on that site, you can book a telehealth appointment right from the homepage. And you can get a free giveaway. We've got a period health guide that's about to go up. And then we also have a fertility meal plan. And my podcast is also the Hormone Puzzle Podcast. I've done over 450 episodes. So you can learn more about that on the website and on your favorite podcast app. And then I'm also on social media. So I am at Kela, Kela_health coach on Instagram. And I'm at Dr. Kela Smith on TikTok. So there's where you can find me.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Kayla. I really appreciate all your energy, all your time, and just the depth of your knowledge. And I can see why you're so passionate about what you do and why you're so good at it.
Oh, thanks, Bria. This was fun.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. Sisters, I'm going to put all of those links in the show notes so you can go and buy the book for yourself, share it with buy for your daughter if you have one that's getting to those age or granddaughters. Now you have so many more tools, I think, from another expert to be more in your life and not just less on a scale. Thank you all so much for being here, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
If you're 35 plus and ready to stop guessing, start understanding your hormones, and feel your absolute best, hit subscribe. That's what we do here.